everyone. Okay, so for today's topic, I will be discussing couples therapy / couples coaching. And I was inspired, actually a client of mine inspired this creation of this video. My client is doing one-on-one coaching with me, and she's enrolled in my 3-month one-on-one coaching program and was interested as well in sort of couples coaching or couples counseling. Before I delve deeper into the subject of couples therapy and coaching, I want to say that I'm going to exclude relationships that have a lot of problems, say of abuse, or when lives are threatened, when there's a lot of dysfunctionality in that way. I'm going to leave that out. And so now I'm going to go directly into what I want to talk about. Let me talk just a little bit. Let me touch on the difference between therapy and coaching. Periodically, I like to weave that back or to remind my audience about the differences. In my very early videos on YouTube or earlier videos, I do talk a little bit about the difference, and I'm going to reiterate a few things. Therapy uses diagnosis, and it could be diagnosis of recovery of major trauma, for example, the complexities of post-traumatic stress disorder, and the list goes on, chronic depression and so forth. And these professionals, licensed, therapists, are trained to also treat certain conditions. The key words are diagnosis and treat, something that coaches do not do in the very strict sense. And that's really important to keep in mind. And many of you know, or if you're a new viewer of mine, I have worked quite a lot in the healthcare industry with a lot of different healthcare providers and doctors and nurses and even psychiatrists. And I've worked out of country as well, being invited by psychiatrists, for example, in Italy, and working alongside them with their patients. And when it is within a teamwork where you have your doctor and you have a therapist, a coach can become very handy. And this is actually something quite new that's developing in the last years in the United States, where sometimes this kind of team is weaved into certain health insurance plans for people as well. And so many people find it beneficial. And I have actually had many clients after their program within their health insurance actually come to me and receive one-on-one coaching. And so I'm very familiar with what therapists do in their line of work and the difference between that work and working with a coach. And it is very accurate to say that these days, many therapists now are also calling themselves coach. And I see this a lot on Instagram. I see this in social media, where you'll have such and such person's name, and then after LMFT, which is licensed marriage family therapist or something like that, and then they'll say, and life coach. And this can be very confusing. So if you're one of these people, I love and respect your profession, but you make it more confusing for people when you do this. And I wish it wasn't as popular anymore, because therapy and coaching have a lot of similarities, but where they differ are few features, but very important features. And one, again, is diagnoses and treatment. Okay. Well-trained and accredited coaches like myself, we do not diagnose nor fix the client. We do not do the client's work for them, for example. We do not take on a personal role with the client. We do not tell the client what to do. And of course, some of these fall into the category as well that therapists, I have family members that are licensed marriage family therapists. And of course, they don't tell their clients what to do. So there's some similarities, but certainly as a coach, we do not do that. You being a good listener does not qualify you of being a proficient, effective coach either. It takes a lot more skill than that. And then one of the other criteria of being a well-trained coach is that you do not get invested in what clients do, in the sense you don't take it personal. So an example of this would be that if a client comes to you because they need to lose weight, and you integrate all kinds of strategies that they have agreed to, because they always come up really, through the Socratic questioning and through the art of coaching, you get to the place where the client kind of knows where they want to move forward. But you don't go in there, and if they didn't meet a goal for that week, you're not there to scold them or reprimand them or get bent out of shape or start thinking that, you're not doing a good job or that they're not doing a good job, and so forth. Okay. Coaching is not appropriate as a frontline support for individuals suffering from chronic depression, neuroses, or addiction, especially without the therapist at hand, or like I was stating previously, without that team. Okay, so this is why it's important to assess people beforehand. They might be working with a psychiatrist. That's totally fine. I have a lot of clients that work either with just a LMFT or a psychiatrist. They're on medication, but that doctor knows that they're also working with me. And so we work sort of in tandem, and as a team, we make sure we don't contradict. I mean, there's a whole lot behind this. And I feel it's really important now more than ever to stress this and to educate all of you, so that when you are going to choose between a therapist or a coach, that you understand the differences. So we live in a world today where a lot of people say that they are depressed, and these are buzzwords, or they're being thrown a lot of different labels, and they do not always have the correct diagnosis. And many times, just like anybody, any profession, doctors, therapists, even coaches, sometimes put labels on people. And it's really important, especially in coaching, we do not label people. And unless we start to literally see something there, then just to identify it for the purpose of identifying something, then we would bring that up. But we don't label people as a certain way, depressed and so forth. And you may be able to go through a certain crises, or as I call it, dark night of the soul, which was, I didn't coin that term. A Catholic mystic, St. John of the Cross, coined that term and actually wrote a book on it way back in medieval times. But I like using that because I think we have many dark nights of the soul. So if you're going through some of this, which means that you feel like you're going through a crisis, an identity crisis, or you've, you're in midlife and you don't know what to do with the second half, or you've lost a loved one, or you've are transitioning with work or career, having problems within there. You have relationship problems with yourself. You don't know how to self-care, establish healthy boundaries, have limiting beliefs, have life purpose issues, or just definitely want to improve yourself and your perception and the way you look at things, not taking things personally, blah, 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 then a coach for sure is a professional to seek. The candidate for coaching is ready to make changes and also a person that makes effort and knows that the changes, for the most part, need to come, from the inside. And although once in a while we all can fall into a victim mentality, we do not stay there. We do not remain there if you're a coaching candidate, because you're eager to be made accountable, and you seek people like a coach to raise the bar for you, to keep that standard, or to raise the standard, for yourself. And I could go on and on in regards to this. This is in itself a video that I could create a little mini series on this. And I'm very passionate about informing and educating all of you really about what true coaching is and is not. And the confusion out there, really, it's this hybrid now. And there's so many people calling themselves coaches when they really are not. And I have to say this, I'm going to use this term. It's a little dangerous too, because if you're not equipped to really understand human behavior, or you haven't gone through a certain training, for example, it can get a little bit messy there, especially in the climate of our society where, there's a lot of different things happening that sometimes people find to be maybe inappropriate or what have you. Now, I'm trying to set this up because you'll understand as I move forward with what I'm going to be saying, but it's important so that as you start, it kind of builds a little bit of a foundation to help you understand either one. And I had my notes here. So when you're experiencing a lot of distress and are in a highly dysfunctional or highly triggered relationship, married or not married, in other words, legally married or not, doesn't matter, seeking that licensed therapist is the best route. However, here is where my professional and personal experience meet on the subject of couples counseling. Most people go into couples counseling because they're at the brink of divorcing. They've tried to work things out together and have not been able to, or they're about to end the relationship, right? It's usually, from what I understand and from the statistics, is a lot of times people go into couples counseling because that's it. They have no other route to take. A lot of people are really hurt, they're angry, they're disappointed, and the list goes on. And the irony of this, and it sounds counterintuitive, but my opinion is working with the therapist outside the couple dynamic is really the most important gift you can give yourself and your partner. Because the individual that is constantly hurt, disappointed, and triggered has much inner work to do. And a lot of times blame and shame are at the precipice of these sessions when you're with a therapist. You're going in there and you're talking about it. She said this, he said that, and this really hurt me, and because 10 years ago this happened, and everything that goes along with that. So as you can hear, there is still an immaturity. And when I talk about immaturity, I'm not degrading the people being hurt and angry. It's that it's kind of they're operating from that level where there's still blame, even though the person says, I want to go into therapy because I know that this would really help us move forward. There's a possibility of that. But for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to call it emotional immaturity still, when there's blame and you're thinking it's always mostly the other person has the problem, not you. And in order for a couple to work well together, they need to mature. They need to transcend the constant flight and fight, anger, disappointment, hurt, walking on eggshells. My opinion, and whether it's coaching, counseling, together, whatever that is, people need to go into their own individual therapy or coaching because we all have baggage. I mean, each individual has their history, their family dynamics that they came from, how they were conditioned, and then they come into a relationship and it's like, and I want to say something. Most people have issues within their partnership, within their relationship. It's kind of normal. That the exception is, the perfect couple that we see, and that, at least in my generation, I was probably the last generation to actually believe that, we could get married or whatever and everything would be okay. It looks like the younger generations probably are not as delusional, but even though they carry their own issues. But I'm just saying, it's like we believe that we could be fixed, our problems would be solved, we'd leave our parents home, and then, kind of situation. So most of us have mom and dad issues to work out within ourselves. When you have a marital problem, partner problem, it's also your problem because the issues are inside of yourself. And you can say, well, I had really good parents, and perhaps that is true, but maybe you're marrying somebody that didn't. Maybe you chose as a partner somebody the opposite of you, or maybe through the marriage, and I'm going to use marriage instead of just saying marriage and partnership. You guys know what I mean by marriage, partnership. You may very well have had a wonderful functional family and mom and dad at home and always there and everything, but maybe you married that, or you've discovered that through your marriage living situation with this person, that actually you're getting triggered of things that did happen in your childhood. So it really doesn't matter. And that's what I mean, that we all have issues that we can work on because we have those triggers. When you're still taking things very personally, if you continue to feel inadequate, insecure, jealous, not listened to on a regular basis, and you think it's your partner's fault, then you're definitely not ready for coaching, but you're not ready for couples counseling either. But you're the perfect candidate for individual, inner, deeper work. So please do your individual work. It's extremely important. Then you'll be able to transcend that lower level, of constantly being in flight and fight, or angry or upset, or walking on eggshells, or whatever those things are. And you'll be ready. You'll be in a place to work as a team with your spouse or partner. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't get irritated at times or something else arises from that. So it probably could. However, you'll both be empowered to work through it and resolve within a shorter period of time. Why? How is this so? Because you'll both be equipped to be accountable for your actions, for your feelings, for your thoughts. You won't be in the blaming mode. And even if you do blame, because by the way, that does happen, it can happen, even with healthier relationships, but you catch yourself. You say, oh, I was doing that, yikes, because we all have blind spots. But, you'll be able to establish healthier boundaries with each other. And, for the most part, you'll be ready to give your partner what they need uh, to feel met by you, and you'll be given the same by them. So there's an emotional maturity, an emotional intelligence at work here. You have two adults rather than, that those two adults that are still working kind of like their inner child stuff, or even yet, how about that imbalanced relationship where you've got one adult and then the spouse or the partner is acting like a child because they haven't done their inner child work. So one is still parenting the other while also trying to be the partner or spouse. Now, real life happens where we, as much as we try to get to know the people before we live with them or marry them, I mean, things do come up. But again, you're willing to do the work yourself. You don't have to be going back and forth, and you get the help that you need when there's emotional intelligence. So you can hear that difference between the immature and the mature, the readiness for change versus the it's your fault only. So when is coaching beneficial to the couple? When is counseling beneficial? When each individual has done much of their inner work and they're just not, triggered about always talking about the past, or they don't have those resentments. Because if you have resentments and which, again, no judgment, but if you have a lot of resentment or you're harboring something there that's negative, then again, that's an indication that you need to do some inner work with yourself. The couple that is ready for that second level when they've done their inner work is that they work collaboratively on, common goals to achieve. And or if they might have something that's different, they want to do this thing or what have you without, an individual, the other partner supports them. They can grow together. They can sustain it because, marriage is much like a business contract when partnering up with others. I mean, you both have a vision that's about commitment and determination and perseverance, no matter what. And it's a vision that is aligned together, from the here into the future. So you're operating from a completely different plane. You're co-creating. This is a word that I use in my contracts and with people. It's always a co-creative relationship. And that's what you're doing, much like what we do, with coaching with an individual. We're co-creating together. And so it's really important to keep in mind when you're thinking about the counseling or the coaching. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful and has maybe given you some food for thought about the differences with coaching and what is appropriate. And I think this is helpful because that way the individuals can move forward in the best way possible. I think this is so much more constructive. Real life isn't a fairy tale. We encounter so many different people, and we're always here to grow and to learn and to know what our triggers are and how we can improve that, how we can move forward, and how we can evolve with our consciousness. And I think this is a huge part of bringing peace to the world. When we have peace within ourselves, when we work on ourselves and we give ourselves the opportunity. Is everyone going to be willing to do their inner work? No. Is everyone going to be ready for anything? Probably not. The important thing is that you continue on your path. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, you can ask them below. And in the meantime, I'm wishing all of you a great day and encouraging you to live authentically. Take care.